So we're talking about new media in the Middle East and in Lebanon specifically. And what is it so different that media here is very different from media abroad? Okay, first of all, let's discuss what the role of media really is. The role of media is traditionally in the French called the fourth estate, which means the last part of government. And the traditional role of media is to actually constantly critique and discuss all the things that the government is doing so that the general citizens, the general audience can actually understand what the government is doing. Because when the government puts out laws and decrees, the average citizen does not know what these mean. We don't generally understand what that law means as applicable to real life. So the media's job is to actually critique that, discuss it, and then make us understand what this means to us. How does this relate to our life? How does that relate to me on an everyday life? How does it relate to everything? Now, when we come to discuss media in the Middle East, it's very different. Take Lebanon as a case. We have 8 main news sources, 8 main stations. All of them are run by political parties or directly or indirectly influenced by these political parties, which means none of them are really objective. They differ on different topics depending on how it affects their sect, their politics, their militia. It doesn't give the average viewer. So we don't have one news source in the Middle East where we can listen to everything about the news in the Middle East. Of course, this adds a complication because we also don't have a foreign news source which can talk to us about the Middle East. So what we end up with is these many sources, none of which are fully reliable. And as you noticed in our countries, you can't watch one news source if you want to know what's going on. You have to watch several news sources, compare and contrast, and then listen and watch different alternate media, so internet sites, Instagram followers, bloggers that would report on the news. You'd have to follow all these to get what you should be getting in one news source. One of the main reasons this happens is politics and government in the Middle East, specifically in Lebanon, but in the Middle East in general, is still very highly monitoring and regulating. Maybe we can claim to have a little bit more freedom in Lebanon when it comes to discussing things, when it comes to discussing the media, when it comes to rights and royalties, but the truth is, no, we don't. It's exactly the same as all the other countries in the Middle East with the exact same censorship. The difference is, since we have 8 different parties and 8 different sects, or different sects and different political powers, all have their own news channels, so we get alternate news sources. But they're all still the same issue, which is they're all controlled by politics and money. The main reason for this, and the main reason this won't change, is relative to the size of our country, so relative to the size of Lebanon, there is no way 8 news channels can make money. So money is usually generated from advertising, from producing TV shows, from producing shows, and then selling the rights and selling advert rights. We don't have enough companies and enough citizens in Lebanon and enough viewers watching TV to sell this many ads to run 8 channels. If we had maybe 1 channel or 2 channels, we could. So why is it we have 8 channels? Because it's not a profit-based institution, which is the way media usually is. So when my news or my channel is profit-based, when it has to make money, it cares what the viewers say, it cares what the audience says, it cares about the quality of its material. But when my channel is politically based, like our channels in Lebanon, and most of the channels in the Middle East are highly politicized and highly supported by religion, by politics, by everything like that. So when you're basing it like that, the problem then becomes a lot more severe, because the problem then is you don't care what your audience really says, you care what the politician wants. You care what your political leader who's sponsoring your channel, what the parties that are investing in you say. You don't care what the audience says, and you don't care about the quality of the material you produce. So you end up with this stagnation, with this media industry which is not really pushing forward, which is not really moving. Instead, it's staying in this place, it's staying highly conservative, because most politicians are very conservative. They want to preserve the way the things are. It's called preserving the status quo, preserving the powers the way they are, because they're currently in power. So it's to their advantage that no change ever occurs, so that they can stay where they are and they can keep making money and power off the situation. So our news sources aren't really objective. They don't really tell us much. They don't really talk about things. Instead, they're simply always doing the same thing. They're repeating the rhetoric of our religious point of view, of the political point of view, of what the politicians want you to know and to hear, which means educating the average audience becomes really difficult. And you've seen this. You've seen recently with the revolution and with everything that's happened in Lebanon, you've seen how much corruption has appeared in the media, how much we've now discovered that the government for the last 20, 30 years has been doing wrong. Because the media, this whole period of time, has not been covering it, because the media really in Lebanon works for different parties in the government. So what they do is they attack each other parties, but they protect themselves. So if you listen to one TV channel, you would say the other parties are bad and this party is good, and the reverse if you listen to the other channel. But none of them actually educate you to what your rights are, what your problems are, what you should be doing. To some extent, of course, all media does give you a little bit of education. But the question is, the role of the press, the role of the media, is not to give you a little bit, but to make you fully aware of what the government is doing. And for as long as we are set in this structure in the Middle East, and specifically in Lebanon for this class, but even in the Middle East, as long as we set with a structure where the TV stations don't make enough money and instead rely on political power, then the media will never be free and the quality won't really improve, because we're not selling to an audience. We don't care that the audience watches. We care that the politician and the money source is happy. So it's the factor that where the money comes from is greatly affecting the quality of what we produce. Now, new media is giving us a channel into this. So now you'll see bloggers, you'll see influencers, and you see that government is really annoyed with these people because they can't control and censor the internet the way they do with traditional media. So these people can give more information, more facts. Of course, their problem is they don't really make good money off of this. So you have to see if your influencer, your blogger, or a reporter that's online in digital media is actually getting sponsored. And if they're getting sponsored by a political party, then you've got to be careful again, because you've gone back to that same loop, that same circle where everything is sponsored by politics and religion, which means nothing really changes and no truth is ever really said. So this is the breakdown. When you have channels that are concerned with their audience watching, that are concerned with producing quality shows that people would want to watch, then you have an audience that can actually be educated through media, and you have a media outlet which is concerned with how objective it appears, how fair it seems when it covers the story, and how informative, and the quality of its programming becomes better and better. But when you have media like we have, where it's just the political party, then the growth is very small. They grow only in competition to each other. So if another channel is producing this quality, we want to produce the equivalent quality so that we don't drop behind the others. But the end of the day is you have your audience because they're the people who believe in you, they're your sect, they're your political party. They have their audience. So I don't really need to say or do much which reveals so much. You'll see social shows that reveal social problems because this kind of sells, it wins the audience. Now that we have digital media, now that we have internet media, it's getting a little bit better because more pressure is being put on TV stations. If I have a blogger that has better news source and better reporting than my TV news is going to lose audience and the blogger is going to win audience. TV stations are becoming aware of this. So you will see now a gradual change in the way TV stations cover material, in the way they present shows, and even the way they produce shows. They're trying to improve their quality to keep up with the digital age because finally they have competition, which is new media, which is the digital media. So that's what's creating a bit of a change. The change is slow, the change is far from enough, but at least there is a sort of change in the Middle East now happening in the quality of the production, in the quality of the news and quality of the information that's being presented. But this only will happen as long as we continue to have digital media be kind of a big part of it. So they have to keep pushing that boundary and forcing TV stations to improve and to become more objective.